Hoy, en Adriana en Complicidad. Innovation defines him. He brought drive-through voting to Texas, and now he wants to be the next Houston mayor. Please welcome Chris Hollins.
¿Cómo estás?
So happy and exciting to see you. Well, tell me about these times. It's very exciting for you.
Absolutely. Well, soy Chris Hollins. Quiero ser el alcalde siguiente del Houston. And, you know, we want to be the mayor of Houston because we need real leadership in this city to move us forward. This is a great city. I grew up in this city. I was raised in this city. I love this city, and I'm raising my children today in the city of Houston. But to move us forward, you know, the challenges that we face are becoming more and more difficult to solve. And we need someone with experience, un líder con experiencia. We need someone with vision. We need someone who has the management abilities to actually lead our city staff, which is over 22,000 people who are part of the staff of the city of Houston. And so that's a really tall task, and it takes someone who's a problem solver. It takes someone who understands how to run a large organization, and it takes someone who knows how to get things done. And so that's why we're running.
Who is Chris Hollins? Where are you born? Tell me about your family.
Good morning, everybody. We're running a basketball.
Chris Hollins is Houston. I was born here in the southwest side of Houston. Memorial Southwest Hospital is where I was born. I was raised by a father who was an HPD police officer for 34 years. And my mother served as an administrative assistant. And she and my father together, they raised me and my two sisters and over 20 foster children when I was growing up. And so the concept of service, the concept of making sure that we were taking care of those around us is something that was, you know, instilled in me since I was a very young person. And so, you know, as I've grown up, you know, I've gone on to, you know, Ivy League universities. I've served major Fortune 500 corporations as well as major public agencies. I worked in the White House under Barack Obama. And now I've returned to Houston and I'm raising my young family here. And so this is a city that I love. This is a city that I want to be the best city in the country to live, to raise a family, and to work. And I want to do that not just for my family or my neighborhood, but for the entire city of Houston. So many of us, whether it's in the Northeast or the Southeast, whether we're black or brown, whether we speak English or Spanish or another language, we need to be moving this city forward together, creating opportunity, making sure that this city is safe, and making sure that we're prepared for the future.
Tell me about your dad. Your father spent like 30 years working in be part for the police?
Yes, and so he's retired now, but growing
I assume that. Well deserved.
Many of his close friends that I call uncle are still working on the force today, but he's been retired for a few years, and he dedicated his career to making sure that he was protecting and serving the city, that this was a safe city to live in. And I still view this as a city that's safe, and again, I'm raising my family in the 3rd Ward. But we also are facing challenges today. Crime, especially violent crime, is on the rise. We're one of the leading cities in the country right now for murder, which is unfortunate and not something that we want to be known for. And so we have to figure out, you know, in conjunction and partnership with our police, our sheriffs, and with members of the community, how to make sure that this is a safe place to take our kids to the park, to go to school, to go to work, to go to church, and that we can interact together as a community, you know, as members of the city of Houston, and create opportunity together.
How you will do that? Because in the last 2-3 months, we have the horrible news about how many police died in action, and also how the crime increased in our community.
Certainly, and it's a great question. And what we're dealing with right now is really unacceptable. So many families are being torn apart because a member of their family is being taken from them. These are fathers and mothers and sisters and cousins. These are caregivers. These are sons and daughters. And just recently, I attended the funeral of a Harris County constable who was killed in the line of duty. And I saw his young daughter, who was handed a flag, and that was meant to, take the place of a dad that she'll never be able to hug again. And as the son of a police officer, I couldn't help but look at that young girl and think that that could have been me, right? And how fortunate that I was that my father came home, every year, every night of those 34 years that he served. But, so how do we solve that? There are a couple of things. One, our police force needs to be a bit larger than it is. This is a huge city. Our footprint, almost 700 square miles. And comparable cities have police forces that are more than double the size of ours. And I don't know that we need to double our police force, but we certainly need to have more officers spending more time in our communities to make sure that we're staying safe. So that's one thing. We also need better technology. We live in the time of the digital age, right, and the metaverse and so on and so forth. We have very advanced technology across this country, across this world, and we need to be utilizing that to be efficient in the way that we address crime issues and to help us solve crime and avoid and deter crime. A third thing is we have automatic weapons that are on our streets. These are weapons of war. The same ones that are being used in Russia and Ukraine right now are on the streets of Houston, and they shouldn't be. Those weapons, I believe in the Second Amendment, but those weapons should not be used in a city like Houston. Those are meant to be used on a battlefield. And those AK-47s and AR-15s and ghost guns, they shouldn't be on Houston streets, period. And so we have to figure a way to get those off, despite the laws that are being passed in Austin that allow anyone without a background check, without training, without a mental health check, to possess these weapons. Another thing that we need is just to speed up our court processes. Right now, we have a backlog in Harris County courts, and there are violent criminals who we should be giving a fair trial, but also a speedy trial, and getting them off the streets. And they're on the streets because of that backlog, and they're also on the streets because bail bondsmen across Houston are giving these criminals discounts to make money, to make profit, and putting them back out in our communities. And we have to figure out how to solve that.
We are talking about arms. How about the human trafficking? We are the #1 city for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also, again, we don't want to be the murder capital. We don't want to be the human trafficking capital. And this is an issue that is very complex. It has to do with immigration, what's coming across our borders, what's coming into our ports. It has to do with physical security. It has to do with opportunity, right? Many people find themselves in positions of vulnerability because they can't find another good paying job, or they can't find housing or security or safety in another way besides being in the position that they're in. And so that's an issue that we need to dig very deeply into. It's not a simple problem and there's not a simple answer, but as someone who is dedicated to looking at data, to understanding how problems are getting solved in other places across the world, across the country, we're going to be very thoughtful about that in making sure that we're protecting the victims here, which are the women who are being trafficked, that we are not turning them into victims of the criminal justice system, and that we're supporting them in a way that gets them out of that lifestyle, out of that situation that they're in, and into being productive members of society.
Cada 60 segundos, no uno, sino 2 niños son víctimas de la trata. Y cada 30 segundos, uno se ve obligado a explotar.
Today we launch Goya Cares.
Goya Cares está comprometido a apoyar a víctimas y vencedores de tráfico y abuso. Para recuperar, restaurar, volver a conectar y para hacer brillar la luz que bloqueará el tráfico. Y visite blocktraffic.org.
Houston, prepárate a recibir la puerta de entrada a tu inversión en la Unión Americana. Puerta Verde.
Puerta Verde es un desarrollo inmobiliario diseñado para albergar a 52 productores de frutas, verduras y secos en un layout moderno y bajo las más altas tecnologías. Por un lado se beneficia el productor al monetarizar el 100% de su producción y por otro lado el consumidor se beneficia al tener todo el abanico de oportunidades para adquirir productos de la mejor calidad. Nuestro proyecto radica en tener 2 centros de distribución en Houston, uno en Dallas, uno en San Antonio, uno en Austin. Puerta Verde es la respuesta de los productores mexicanos al nuevo entorno económico y al nuevo Tratado de Libre Comercio.
Llega a Houston, Puerta Verde. Espérala próximamente.
Adriana en complicidad.
You mentioned something very important. Well, it's not easy because it's not only one way they can trafficking a girl or a boy. It's in too many ways. And also, we are a very multicultural community.
Absolutely. Well, look, I'm the parent of young children. I have a daughter who's 5 years old. My son is not even 2 years old yet. And this is a world that they're living in where we have to educate them and prepare them and make sure that we're keeping them safe. And so as we're talking about safety and crime, as we're talking about trafficking, the community, the first step is always to involve the community in the solution. You know, I don't have all the answers. When I was county clerk and we had things like drive-through voting and 24-hour voting, I didn't make those things up, right? We heard about those ideas from members of the community, from people in other states and other jurisdictions who had already done something like that successfully, and we figured out how to integrate that into Houston. And so in the same way that we're going to, you know, have thought leaders from across the country and from across the world to advise us on these solutions, we also need folks from the community who are seeing crime up close and personal, who have been potential, you know, victims of human trafficking themselves and have gotten out or may even still be in it, to help us to understand what they're truly dealing with and then start to think about what the solutions to those problems are.
How challenging was?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is Houston, and every challenge we face, where you hear Houston strong, right? The Houston that I know does not run from a challenge. The Houston that I know moves forward. And, you know, when we served in that position, there were a lot of things standing in our way, the biggest of which was the pandemic. We had to figure out how to make sure that people had unparalleled access to be able to exercise their right to vote, but that they could do so safely without risking their health, without risking the health of their families, whether it was their kids or their parents or folks in their household who had some sort of pre-existing condition, right? We were all scared at that point. But we followed the data. We brought in some of the leading scientists and doctors from our medical center and asked them to help us and give us feedback on how to keep voting safer. We went around the country to Florida, to Wisconsin, to Arizona, to California, and we asked them, how did you administer your election during COVID? And what lessons can we learn from you? And also, what things did you do that you wouldn't do again so that we can avoid mistakes that you made, right? And so we used the power of communities. We used the thoughts of so many people, not only in and around Houston, but across the country, on how we can do this the best way and the safest way and provide the best access and the best results. And the results of that spoke for itself, right? So we put together drive-through voting. We tripled the number of early voting centers. So you were 3 times as likely to have a voting center near your
24
home.
hours voting too?
Yeah, we had 24-hour voting so that folks who are working right over at our Port of Houston, who are powering our economy, who work through the night, could vote at a time that was safe and convenient for them. Teachers who were staying in their classrooms until late in the night to compare, to have lesson plans for their students. They could come out of their classroom and vote at a time that was convenient for them. Doctors and nurses who were working around the clock. First responders, folks who were working at grocery stores, stocking our shelves during the pandemic. And we all know how important those workers were. They get off at 2 and 3 in the morning. And so we gave them just one night, not a whole week, one night where they could vote around the clock when they got off of their shift at a time that worked for them. And that's something that we got that from Las Vegas, because they have done that for some time to serve their hotel and casino workers, right? And so, the way that you solve these tough problems, is you don't sit in a room by yourself and you say, hey, I'm a genius and here's the answer. You look and you see who has done this well before, and you hear ideas from others, and then you try to put that in our context, right? You try to say, how would that work in Houston? And you bring together that local knowledge as well, again, from the community, from folks who have done this before here on the ground, and you make it practical and you put it into use. And we were able to do that. It didn't take us 4 years to do that. I was only in office for 5 months total.
Yeah, you just
right?
came. Yeah, I remember that. Mm-hmm.
And so we put together drive-through voting seemingly overnight, but with a lot of thought, a lot of planning. And you saw that in the execution and how smooth it was and how much people enjoyed that experience. Same thing with 24-hour voting. Same thing with mail ballot tracking. In the same way that you track your Amazon package.
Program. Muy controversial el programa del envío de los votos por correo.
Yes, but the tracking was not controversial at all. So in the same way that you would track your post office mail or your Amazon package, we said you can track your mail ballot. You can type in your information and you can make sure that it got to us. And although the state fought us on so many of these things, and that's another conversation, they actually learned from us on mail ballot tracking, and now there's a statewide system where everyone in Texas can track their mail ballot. And so we're proud of that. We were on the forefront of this for all of Texas and frankly all of the United States. And it's inspiring to see other folks learn those lessons from us in the same way that we learn them from other people across the country.
Are you proud of yourself?
I'm proud of our team. At the county clerk's office, there were more than 300 civil servants who worked day and night to make this a safe, accessible, fair, and efficient election. And then on election day, we had over 11,000 volunteers from the community. And so many partners came together, not just people coming out of their neighborhoods, but organizations like the Houston Rockets and the Houston Texans and the Houston Food Bank, all saying we want to be a part of the solution. Let us help you. We're going to give our employees the day off so that they can serve their community, and we're going to sponsor in one way or the other. We voted in the Rockets stadium, right? They donated that to the city, and that was amazing. And there were so many others just like them, churches and synagogues and mosques and community centers that said we want to be part of the solution. And so what I'm proud of is how our community came together. And despite all of the challenges that we faced, how we overcame as a city.
I can see your eyes. You're very emotional, and with your passion is amazing. And I can see you right now, that was something so special, but thank you, because it was very special for us. Vamos a hacer una breve pausa, regresamos, porque todavía tenemos más que platicar con nuestro invitado especial el día de hoy, Chris Hollins.
Adriana en complicidad.
Hola cómplices, no crea que ando de turbante, sino que estoy a punto de cambiar el color de mis pensamientos. Y
por supuesto que la que me está haciendo hoy este cambio es la doña Beauty and Spa. Vengan para acá. ¿Dónde estás ubicada?
6210 de la Airline, entre la Bank Street y Airline.
Te puede cortar el cabello, peinar, cambiar el color, hacer el microblending, las pestañas, para que estés bella y orgánicamente bella cuando te levantes. Es en la doña Beauty and Spa. Y a continuación, el resultado final. Y el resultado final de la doña Beauty and Spa. Vean nomás, ¿eh?
Bonita.
No quedó ni rojo, ni canoso, ni nada. ¡Yes! ¡Lo logramos!
Ya está.
Corremos por los chamacos a la escuela. ¡Bye!
Cómplices, les estoy dando la bienvenida a mi fuente de la juventud, a mi marido que ya se dio la vuelta, no me quería acompañar. Pero ahora aquí le voy a mostrar mi verdadera realidad. Soy bella orgánicamente gracias al doctor Germán igual. Dice que va a salir corriendo porque no quiere ver cómo me ponen el botox. Pero pues ya urge. Llegó el momento de la verdad. Adiós, arrugas. Y listo, eso es todo, cómplices. ¿Ya ven? Se demora usted más en pensarlo que en hacerlo. Y claro, queda así como así flamadito, pero ahorita se pone hielito y listo. Miren nada más. Premio, más 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 premio. Por eso es que tiene que venir aquí con el doctor Germán Newell. Nos vemos en la siguiente. En 6 meses, ¿verdad?
Así es.
Listo. Véngase ya con el doctor Germán Newell. Mi cuenta de la juventud.
Adriana en complicidad.
Ciencias políticas, administración de empresas e inclusive leyes son parte de las carreras profesionales de Chris Hollins. Why these three careers?
Yeah, well, I mentioned earlier the inspiration of my parents and the example that they set for me and my sisters to serve our community. And today, both of my sisters are educators in the Houston area, and they're both married to firefighters at the Houston Fire Department, right? And so, you know, that service is something that's always been with me. And when I graduated high school here in the Houston area, I went on to Morehouse College. And Morehouse College is the same institution that Martin Luther King Jr. attended. And there, our professors, you know, who mentor us and who teach us, they always talked about the impact that we could have on our communities. And so I've been inspired for a long time to serve in one way or the other. And I couldn't have anticipated being the county clerk. No one knew that our county clerk was going to resign and that I would be
How that
appointed.
came? Well, obviously you resigned, but how you came to be the leader for that group in this very tough time?
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, the short version is that I applied for the job. Okay. We were all surprised. The entire community was surprised when Diane Troutman, our previous county clerk, had resigned. And her replacement was appointed by the Commissioner's Court. And in 2018, our Commissioner's Court flipped from being Republican to Democrat. And so someone who was going to be more of a progressive leader, who certainly believed in voting access, was going to be the right person for the job. And I was fortunate to have been selected. But to go back, I mentioned attending Morehouse College. And from there, going to work in the White House under Barack Obama.
How was that? Tell me the experience.
That was truly inspiring. You know, he set an example for our entire country to follow. And he also showed us what was possible if you work hard, you know, if you believe, if you do the right things, if you're courageous. And I think there are millions of people, young and old, across this country who benefited from his example and from what he did while he was in office. And so I was proud to be a very, very small part of that in 2009 after he was elected. But I left the White House, I went to law school.
No, don't move. Don't move the topic. I want to know more about it. I want to know what happened to you, what it was in your mind and in your heart the first day you arrived to the White House, and how that opportunity came to you.
Yeah, well, similarly, I applied. So when Barack Obama was elected, there are intern classes every few months. And I applied to be in the first intern class. And I believe there were about 100 or 130 spots, and there were over 100,000 people who applied for the program. And I have no idea why they picked my resume out of the stack, but I know that I got a phone call, and when they called, I did my best to sound professional and to express how enthusiastic I was to take part in the change that we wanted to see in our country. And I was selected. And so I worked in the Office of Presidential Personnel. And so in that role, I hired more people. So when the president takes office, the president has more than 2,000 appointments that they make to various offices. And so I was in the role of helping to select and vet the people who would be appointed. And once we selected them, to prepare them to go through a confirmation process and ultimately to take their offices. And so that was a really, really interesting role. And again, I played a very small part, but one that I will always appreciate and remember, in making sure that our Department of Justice had professionals in it that were going to serve this country well, that our Department of Education had those who were going to, invest in quality schools for all of our children across this country, and other small boards and commissions that I helped to appoint as well. And not only did I get to, see what was happening at an up close and personal level, but I also got to work with some amazing people. Some of the folks who interned with me, they're still my close friends to this day, and they're doing great things across the United States. And so I've always been fortunate to have friends and colleagues who, even though we might have sat across the desk or the classroom from one another, have inspired me to be better, to continue to achieve, to continue to serve others in a new and more profound way. And the White House experience was certainly nothing short of that.
How that experience impact your life and impact your future plans?
Well, I left the White House and I went on to law school. And I thought that at that point that I would begin to practice law. I pivoted a bit and went into business. As you mentioned, I got my master's in business. And so I went into the business world as a consultant. And in that role, I served both private sector companies, like Fortune 500 companies, as well as public agencies, like our Department of Defense and other agencies across the country. And I helped them to better serve their customers or the people who they served. I helped them to pioneer new strategies. I helped them to deliver better results. And frankly, once I served as, in that role in the business world, I thought that I would do that forever. And I was making an impact in a way that was fulfilling for me. But as I mentioned, the Department of Defense as an example, I'd have to fly to DC every Monday morning to go and work at the Pentagon. And after I was married and after we had our daughter, and my daughter came of age and started having a personality and became, my best friend, at that point, I didn't want to get on a plane anymore every Monday morning. And so I made the decision in about 2017 to leave that job and to do something that was going to be here in Houston and where I would work for myself and have more flexibility in my schedule. And that took me back into the practice of law.
Más de 94,000 pequeñas empresas que tienen menos de 20 empleados, justo es lo que tenemos nosotros en el estado de Texas. We have more than 94,000 small businesses. Taking in consideration your background in administration, how you will help the small businesses in Houston?
In addition to operating my law firm, I opened a restaurant in the pandemic, and it's been extremely challenging. Of course, doing what we can to make sure that our customers are safe when they come to eat their meals, but
What
also
is a restaurant? We need to go in there. He can do that. Advertising time right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So my restaurant's called Stacked Pickle. It's in Northwest Houston.
Okay.
It's a sports bar and grill concept. So we have a lot of TVs. You can come in and watch soccer, football, golf, you name it, basketball. But you can also bring your family. It's a very family-friendly restaurant, and we serve great burgers and wings and beverages of your choice.
That is real life. Be the owner for the small business, and also you open the restaurants during the pandemic. You like big challenge. You dream big, and you pick a big challenge in your life.
Well, I didn't plan to open it during the pandemic. Let's get that part straight, right? We were planning to open before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit in the same way it hit all of us, right? None of us were prepared for this. None of us had any idea that something like this could happen, because we haven't experienced this in our lifetimes. But we have to adjust. We have to pivot. We have to make new plans. We have to make new strategies. And what we did at the restaurant is also similar to what we did at the county clerk's office and at my law firm. How do we make sure that our employees are safe? How do we make sure that the people that we serve are safe? How do we continue to do our jobs, whether that's over Zoom or working socially distanced in the office or working on shifts? At one point in my law office, we had people who came in on Monday and then the other people came in on Tuesday, right? And the restaurant business it's a challenging business outside of a pandemic. And we've been learning, how to do that on the fly, and every day is a new lesson, and every day is a day that we try something new to be better, to better serve our customers and to make sure that we are able to be successful and to keep the number of jobs and employees that we have and grow our economy. And so it has been a learning experience for sure. Every day we're learning.
That's true. That's true. And do you have any plans or a strategy to bring support to the small business?
So we have to make it easy to start a small business, right? Small businesses are what drive our economy. And you mentioned a number of small businesses across Texas, but the number of people who work in and employ at small businesses, they represent a huge number of Houstonians. And so small businesses are our backbone. So we have to make it easy to start a small business. We have to make it easy to interact with the government when you need to, right? Whether that means getting your permits or your licenses, whether that means providing support during times of challenge like the one that we're in. But again, every single problem, we're gonna start with the community. So the way that we're gonna develop our position on how best to support small businesses is to come and talk to you about the issues that you face as a small business owner, to hear from you and let you be part of the solution. Because we're not solving the problem for you, we're gonna help you solve the problem for you and bring those ideas into what we do to make your life easier and ultimately to benefit all of Houston.
Conciliation. It's something I really very interesting to know how you will make that, because obvious difference, parties, Democrats, Republicans, how you have a plan to come together with both sides, Republicans and Democrats.
Mm-hmm. So many of the problems that we face across this country, across this city, they're not Republican or Democratic problems. when a storm hits us, it doesn't hit a Republican house or a Democratic house, right? When one of our kids gets killed, it's not a Republican kid or a Democratic kid. That victim is not a Republican victim or a Democratic victim. And when we talk about jobs, right, these aren't Republican jobs or Democratic jobs. These are jobs that are going to support our economy, allow us to support our families, which is the most important piece, and then allow us to continue to contribute to our city, to our society. And so ideas come from all shapes and sizes. When I turned, when I became the county clerk, I mentioned that we got on the phone with folks in Florida and folks in Arizona and folks in California. We were talking to Republicans and Democrats because voting access was not a Republican problem or a Democratic problem. It was an American problem. We all have the constitutional right to vote, and our election administrators should be ensuring our access to that right, no matter what your party affiliation is, no matter who you're going to vote for, no matter what part of town you come from, no matter what language you speak, no matter who you love, you have that right. And that's the same thing and the same approach that we're going to bring to the city of Houston. We want to keep you safe, period. We all want to be safe, and we all want our families to be safe, period. We all want good education for our children, period. And so that's what we're going to be working to achieve. And, we've been inspired just in these few weeks since we've announced that Democrats are supporting us, Republicans are supporting us, independents are supporting us, and people who hate politics are supporting us. Because folks are tired of the division. They just want to see good government. They want to see leadership. They want to see, someone or a group of someones who they believe in, who are dedicated and who are going to do what's best, who are going to, again, bring in those solutions and listen, and then do the best job that they can to provide better services, to improve outcomes, to provide better access, and give a voice to the voiceless across this city.
Period. Vamos y regresamos.
Adriana en complicidad.
Bienvenidos cómplices a su segmento de belleza. Bueno, el día de hoy vamos a presentar un maquillaje, el maquillaje para nuestra amiga Hailey. Para ella, tiene una piel brillante, no necesita de mucho, es muy bella, entonces lo que vamos a hacer es que solamente vamos a agregar un poquito de sombra a lo que son sus ojos y para que podamos hacer un cambio de look. Bueno, vamos a aplicar en esto una sombra en tonos completamente un poquito morados. Pues bueno, es el look del día de hoy. Algo suave, difuminar los ojos completamente para que, abra el ojo. Ya con la pestaña grande ya se le mira un poquito el ojo más grande. Ahora con la sombra, pues ahora sí que completamente queda bello el ojo abierto. Sobre esto vamos a echar un poquito de color en lápiz en la ceja para darle un poquito más de forma. Al terminar esto, podemos solamente acabar con un rosado de rubor y eso, le va a dar un poquito más de color. Y los labios los mantuvimos completamente naturales con un rosado suave y este look le queda fantástico. Atrévanse a usar colores diferentes y colores que están fuera de su zona de confort para que puedan tratar y lucir espectacular. Bueno, estos fueron los consejos de belleza en el día de hoy. No se olviden de seguirme en las redes sociales, arelifonseca.com, mi Instagram, arelifonsecahtx.
Y estamos de regreso aquí en Adriana en Complicidad y estamos en complicidad justo platicando con Chris, quien el día de hoy lo estamos conociendo de una forma diferente. Chris Hollins, quien está dedicado al servicio público y que ahora es también tiene las aspiraciones de ser alcalde de la ciudad de Houston. More than 43.7% in in the Harris County are Hispanics, Latinos. What is your plan? How you will protect us, and also what you will do for us?
Absolutely. Houston is the most diverse city in this country. Not only do we have so many people coming from Mexico, from Central America, from South America, we have people coming from Europe and West Africa and different parts of Asia. And what makes Houston great is our diversity, that we're bringing the best parts of every community and that we're coming together. And that makes for amazing culture, it makes for amazing food, and it makes for an awesome community. And so, we need to be making sure that we're moving all of Houston forward, not just for one neighborhood, not just for one, set of folks, but for everybody. And so, again, I'm going to repeat this. The first thing that we're going to do is listen. We're going to, talk to members of the Hispanic community, both our political leaders, like our county judge, Lena Hidalgo, our Commissioner Adrian Garcia, but also talking to folks, in their neighborhoods, at their doorsteps, and hearing what their problems are, what challenges that they're facing. And these are solutions that we need to bring to bear for every community. And so certainly the Hispanic and Latino community, makes, a big part of that, right? We can't be successful as a city of Houston unless the Hispanic community is strong and thriving. Again, has the same access to good schools and well-paying jobs where we can support our families. And so we're deeply committed to that, not for the Hispanic community, but for every community. And we're going to be listening and having more conversations over the course of this campaign to ensure that Hispanic companies, as an example, are getting a fair shot at access to city contracts, that Hispanic workers have the same rights as everybody else and are entitled to a fair wage for a fair day's work to support their families, large and small. And so that is what we're committed to, and we are excited about the conversations that we're having. I just came before here from the East End, our second ward, and there are thriving small businesses there, and I'm looking to just learn more and be a part of more conversations and involve our community in the solutions.
I would love one day, okay, with cameras and microphone, be your shadow in campaign.
Come on, bring the cameras with you.
Yes, I really, to see that the people reaction, our community reaction, because now is the time to be together. Now is the time to learn and know our candidates before we select who is the one will be our leader. That is very, very important. Houston is a friendly city to do businesses, to protect the community. Tell me about immigration. What do you see? What is your vision for that? I know you don't change that laws, but in the way you can protect your community,
Certainly. And yes, right, there are federal laws and state laws that govern immigration. But the strength of this country is from immigrants, right? We were founded by immigrants. We were built by immigrants, some that were brought here against their will, and some who came here seeking opportunity for themselves, for their families, for their children. And so we need to understand, again, the strength that comes from that diversity, and we need to embrace that. And when we talk about safety in our community, that's safety for everyone. We all want to wake up in the morning, be able to take our kids to school, go to work, and come home safely without being harassed, without facing danger. And that's going to be our commitment to every resident of the city of Houston. But we're going to ensure safety, we're going to ensure opportunity, and we're going to ensure Houston's future. Because not only do I want this city to be great today, but I want this to be a city that my daughter and my son can raise their families in 15 and 20 years from now. And so we're going to be making sure that we're putting things in place, that we're solving problems not only that we're facing right now, but anticipating the challenges we're going to face in the future and addressing those and putting ourselves on firm footing for those today.
Your vision for Houston?
Our vision for Houston is that this needs to be the safest city in the country, that we need to have the strongest economy in this region, in the country, and that this is the best place in the country to work, to live, and to raise a family.
Something else you want to add?
For those who want to learn more, visit us at chrishollins.com. Nos visita at chrishollins.com. CHRISHOLLINS.
Thank you so much. Chris Hollins. Hoy lo conocieron, hoy pudieron conocer un poco más cuáles son sus planes inmediatos y cuál es su propuesta durante estas elecciones. Pero no se olvide participar y votar. Por su atención y preferencia, muchísimas gracias. Nos vemos en la siguiente edición de Adriana en Complicidad Show.
Adriana en Complicidad.